Hi, welcome to Spirit of Life. I'm Dave Gerber, your host, and with me today is Jeff Bryant. Jeff's been a friend of mine for quite a few years. He's a martial arts instructor in Oxford, owner of Bryant's Karate School. And Jeff called me and asked about being here on Spirit of Life and wanted to talk about suicides. This is something that this community and our neighboring community, Lake Orion, has dealt with, teen suicides. And this is something that Jeff's really passionate about. So Jeff, suicides, you had talked about some of the other things, some of the things that are involved in it, what happens in the families and in the community. So what interests you in this topic?
I don't know a lot about suicides, Dave, but the thing that I do know is just the hurt that it causes everybody around them. And, since I've been here in Oxford for about 14 years, I've been involved in church youth groups. I've been involved with Cub Scouts. I was a Cub Master, and with teaching at my karate school. That I feel that, at some point in time, I've touched almost all these kids' lives that grew up in Oxford. I know most of them, and then I read in the papers that that they're committing suicide, and Lake Orion they're committing suicide, and it really touches me because even if I didn't know those kids, the kids that I do know that are affected by it, I can just see their hearts breaking. And it breaks my heart to see them go through this. So I've been talking to you about we need to do something, get together, and try to get the word out there about it.
Yeah, so you're not only talking about suicide and maybe prevention, we're going to talk about some myths and misconceptions about it, but just the human impact. Because
Yes.
As a pastor, I've officiated more than my fair share of suicides. I've also counseled with people that have been friends with people that have committed suicide. I've had some friends and friends at my church that have committed suicide, and so I see the broad impact and things like that. Why don't we talk, because we can't really talk for everybody and what they go through.
Exactly.
How has it impacted you?
Me personally, it hasn't really affected me. It's just individuals that I know. I have one young karate student that he's 14 years old now, and he's been with me since he's 3.5. And he's had 2 friends commit suicide in the last 2 years. And just watching what he's going through and the thought process, it kills me.
Yeah. That's one of the challenges that I always have is that I'm not big on cliches, so I don't want to talk in cliches. And I want to talk about the spiritual side for a second. That may rub some of you the wrong way, and I'm really okay with that. In fact, let me do that right now. There is a stream of thought out there in the religious community that suicide is somehow the unpardonable sin. That's your one-way ticket to hell or damnation because you committed suicide. I don't see suicide as that at all. This is somebody who is hurting and hurting to a point where this is the only way that they could see relief.
Yep.
So how sick and how much pain are you in that you think you're doing everybody a favor? And I think God understands that pain, that when you're wrapped up and when you're in this much pain, I think God understands that we're not thinking in our right mind. So I don't see it as any different. I've had Christians that have committed suicide. I've talked to people that were contemplating it through counseling and maybe it was medication, but they started getting things right. But I want to put that out of the outset, that since this is a Spirit of Life, we might be talking about that, and there's all these verses and all these unforgivable sins. Well, I think God's bigger than that. I think God's got a lot more grace than that. So if you have problems, please email somebody who would want to argue with you about that. I'm really not interested in arguing about it. I think it's not very beneficial to people. So on the human impact, when you see a kid go through that, have you found anything that is good for them to help them in dealing with this?
Well, the biggest thing, like I said, with talking with the individual is, being the second time. The first time it was with one of his very good friends that was his age. And that was even a little bit harder to deal with in speaking to him and just trying to let him know that the pain he was going through and, it affected him, but I was trying to get it to where he had to move on and trying to, it was a little bit more difficult. The second person was much older. He was like 24. He was a friend of the family. He lived with them for a few years, and he moved back up north. And that was a little bit easier because, you know, I was trying to figure out at 14 what painful things could be there, but there are for the younger kids. Just doing research, you know, they start breaking up the numbers from 14 on down and then 15 to 22. The reason that they have that 14 on down is because there's so many kids from that age group, right?
Committing suicide?
Yes.
From 14 down, man.
Yeah, so 14 down. I mean, it's a very small amount, but they do break it up. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions is right now that suicide is on an uprise. And really in the United States, it's not on an uprise. It's pretty much plateaued. But the thing is, there's more and more younger people committing suicide versus in the last decade where it was much older people, where they were getting towards the end of their life and they were just done. And now we're starting to see all the pressures for the younger kids, to where they're starting to feel those pressures, and they really just need people to talk to, and the right people.
Right.
I know that when my daughter was in 7th or 8th grade, she was having a conversation with my wife. I was teaching karate, and she was just going through all these depressions and the things that she was going through in life, and she made a comment that, you know, maybe this world would be better off without me. And when I got home, you know, my wife talked to me, and so I went into her bedroom, and I'm not a scholar. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to talk to people like that. But I just knew I had to let her know that I loved her, and this was not the right idea. And I sat there and cried with her. And here this, you know, 6'2", 250-pound man that she's actually seen in competition is afraid of nothing, crying. And I think that set the tone with her that, yeah, this isn't something I want to do. There are people that love me, and I'm not going through this alone. And I guess that's one of the things that I'd like to talk about too is, you know, parents getting involved and just showing their kids that they love them, especially the men. I don't see, nowadays it seems like the women are a lot more involved with their children than the men, and I think that even girls need to know that they have parents there, especially their dads that love them.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great start. I think parental involvement is very, very important. And when we come back, we'll talk about some myths and misconceptions and some other information. You're watching Spirit of Life. I'm Dave Gerber, your host, with Jeff Bryant. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm Dave Gerber, your host, and with me is Jeff Bryant. He's the host of the show Contact on the Oxford Cablevision. But today we're talking about suicide, and we are talking about the human impact and just some from a personal experience that maybe this show is designed to get the ball rolling in a very real way, to get maybe our communities of faith together, to look at our local resources and stuff like that. But Jeff was doing some research. This is something he's passionate about. He's not a licensed counselor. He's not, not in any way in that. He has experienced it, as many of us have in the community. Because he's a martial arts instructor, he has a large group of kids that have come in. But he's done some research, and what are some of the myths and misconceptions about suicide that you found?
One of them is that people who talk about suicide don't really want to commit suicide. You'll hear people say that, and the facts are that it is a way to cry for help. It's just not a cry for attention. And I think that what we have to do is, even if it is a cry for attention, we have to take it seriously. We can't just let it go by the wayside and say, this person is saying that the world would be better off without them, or they're at their wits' end and they're going to end it. If you hear things like that, we need to take them serious. We just don't, let them go.
that's been my experience. And one of the ways that we can do that is you can ask questions. When they say something like that, it's real simple to say, well, what's going on? You don't engage them in that conversation. One of the things that always is a trigger for me is when somebody will say, I just can't take it anymore. And I'll say, what does that mean? And they go, well, I'm not going to kill myself if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Or if that's what you're thinking. And I usually look at them and say, I wasn't until now. What's
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
And engage them. And don't panic. We're just having a conversation here. I'm somebody that wants to help. You're somebody that wants to help. You are somebody that wants to help. And instead of panicking, talk about it. Find out what's going on, and then reach out for help. You can go to your local pastor. You can call a church and say, hey, I'm going through this. Call a community organization. I believe even Oxford schools would have some resources available. I know Crossroads for Youth, and we're gonna put some resources up at the end of this segment that you can copy down, some local resources that will be some help to you. What's some other ones that you had?
Back to when they say that, though, kids are more likely to go to other kids than they are going to be an adult. So I urge the parents to talk to their children to find out what their friends are feeling, because their friend may not want to go to their parents or another adult, but they're going to go to your child. And it's always going to be that, I'm going to tell you something, but I don't want you to tell anything. And you have to let your children know that the worst thing they can do is sit on these feelings of their friends. Let other adults know, because if they truly love their friend, they have to let an adult know and somebody help out.
One of the hardest things for me, and I don't know if you've ever had to do it, I don't know what it is about the martial arts, but I've had some students that have had some issues. Some of it was drugs, alcohol, and some of them were abusive. And the hardest thing to do with a friend is to call the police. That's the hardest thing to do. And you might lose that friend for a few years or several years, but then, like I did about 4 or 5 years ago, one of the guys that I got arrested called me up and said, hey, thanks, that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. And I wanted to tell him, you weren't feeling that way when we did it. But I think that's one of the things that when I talk to people, I tell them I'm a mandatory reporter. I have to, if you're going to hurt yourself or hurt somebody else or commit a violent crime, I have to tell somebody. But I'm going to walk through it with you. I think that's the other part is we need to assure them that we're going to walk with them, and not in a condemning or judging way. You didn't do that with your daughter.
Yes. Yep.
You cried with her. You let her know that you cared, and that you were going to walk with her through all that kind of stuff, instead of just telling her, hey, get up, rub some dirt in it, get over it. So I think that's really important. What you had something else down there that we had talked about in between the segments.
Anyone that tries to kill himself must be crazy. That's a misconception too.
Crazy, and they're talking about like having a mental illness.
Yes, and yes, they may have a mental illness because a normal thinking person probably isn't thinking of killing themselves. But again, we don't understand the pain that they're going through, right? I mean, they're going through things that, like you had said before, they just want to end that pain. Right. So they don't necessarily have to be crazy. They are a rational thinking person, but they just want to look at an ends to the pain.
Right.
So, and the other thing is there's depression. There's a lot of different things, and with that, just for everybody out there right now, if they think that they're above, suicide in their family and things like that. The last couple of weeks, I've been talking to different people about suicide, and telling them that we were going to do this show, and I was amazed by talking just to a few people that I know. 2 of them have said they've had suicide thoughts in their past.
Yeah.
And I was totally shocked, because these people, I would have never thought that.
Some of them will entertain it, and I think removing some of the stigma, and I think anytime we label something, we take the human element out of it. I mean, how bad is somebody hurting? I think of, and we'll talk about it in the next segment. I think where I want to just talk to people right now is if you are a part of a community of faith, find somebody you can trust. I don't care who it is, and take a chance, reach out. one of the things that is really hard is to ask for help. So people will say it in backwards ways. I don't think I can take it anymore. Maybe just kill myself. We can treat those as throwaway statements, but they aren't throwaway statements. They're fishing.
Yes.
Just like when your kid comes to you and says, "What time's dinner?" You know, they're not asking what time dinner is. They're asking if it's safe to ask for a popsicle or a cookie or something like that. So it's not a throwaway comment. It could very well just be fishing to see what's going on. You might ask, you know, is there a plan in place? Because we do use, "Oh, just shoot me now," you know, or "I'll just shoot myself if that ever happens." But there's ways that they fish, and let's engage them. You know, how would you do it? What's going on? And get them some help. Well, in the next segment, I'm going to talk from a personal story probably, and some about hindsight.
Okay.
For that, so we can, because hindsight is a bugger when it comes to this. Anyway, you're watching Spirit of Life. I'm Dave Gerber, your host, and Jeff Bryant is my guest. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. Once again, I'm your host, Dave Gerber, and with me is Jeff Bryant. He is the host of Contact on Oxford Cablevision. But today we're talking about suicide. He is a concerned community leader. We have talked about this before, and that's why we're doing this show. By the way, if you'd like to contact us, if you or somebody you know is an expert in this field or can offer us some resources or would like to be on the show to help with the community effort, you can contact manager at occtv.org, or you can call 248-628-9658. Those will be scrolling across the bottom of your screen. At least they will now. So you had some interesting statistics, and then you just told us a story at the break that sort of gave us goosebumps.
Yes.
Why don't you, some of those statistics are shocking.
Some of the suicide statistics, these come from 2010. I was looking for more up to date, but I'm pretty sure it's something that they do by decade. But I found that it says that it's more likely for someone to commit suicide than it is to be a homicide or be murdered. So I found that shocking, that there's more people out there taking their own lives. I mean, because we look in the paper, you know, we're always on our children about not going here because somebody's going to attack them or something's going to happen to them. But they're more likely to hurt themselves than be hurt by somebody else. So we have to, I think, start within the home and making sure everything is safe too, than just outside. Another statistic was, in America, someone attempts to commit suicide in every minute. So every minute that goes by, another child or another person tries to commit suicide. So this is a 30-minute segment. So in the time frame that we taped the show, 30 people would have tried to commit suicide. Now, with that being said, every 17 minutes, somebody succeeds. I don't like to use that term "succeeded" in suicide, but they accomplished and they passed on.
Right.
Throughout the world, 2,000 people a day commit suicide. Not just throughout the United States, the whole world. Then in the United States, suicide is the 8th leading cause of death. Now, I've seen it as far as 5 to 8. Different websites show different things, so I went with the highest one. So it's the 8th leading cause of death. Now, people from the age of 15 to 24, it's the 3rd leading cause of death. 4 out of 5 people that commit suicide have attempted it prior to that. So, again, asking for help. So if somebody tries to commit suicide once, chances are the odds are going up, and we need to find that person help. We can't just say, you know what, hopefully they won't do it again. Then I was reading a story of a suicide victim that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and they found a note. He left a note behind for his loved ones, and this person must have just been given up on the world. He didn't just give up on himself, he gave up on the world, that it's just not a nice place to live. And what he said was, he says, I'm going to walk to the bridge. If one person smiles at me on the way, I will not jump. So try to remember that when you're walking through life and you're going through day to day, that you do have an effect on other people. And just a smile can help.
Yeah, I was thinking that, probably youth groups, we should be out there looking out for the underdog, and those people that don't have friends and being a friend. I think that's really important. I had a friend, Charlie, showed up at church one Sunday, distraught, and crying through the whole service, and just at a very, I've seen crying in church, but this was just, something was definitely wrong. So I talked to him. He said, he just couldn't take it. His world was collapsing around him. I summoned, I was doing hand signals. There was a hole. It was horrible. But trying to get the police involved, and I didn't want to leave him alone, so he had to go home, go get his dog. So I rode in the car with him. While he would go out and do his tasks, I was texting back to the church. I said, the police are there. And then he did a very chilling thing. He just said, you know what, I feel much better. Thanks for listening to me. And I knew right then that he was set. He was going to do it. He was going to drop me off, and he was going to go kill himself. Well, the police were hiding, so he would pull into the church. I said, why don't you go to the office? And they came out of the woodwork, the 3 officers. And we did a voluntary admit on him. And he was great for 3 or 4 years. And then he committed suicide, shot himself. Tragic. We stopped one, but we couldn't stop the other one. And they made their choice, but we did everything that we could. It wasn't a good choice. It wasn't the right thing to do. There was nothing that he was going through that couldn't be solved. Another one, a coworker of several people had committed suicide, and I went and talked to the coworkers. Now, these are all people that got master's degrees in social work and stuff like that, and they thought, we just thought she turned a corner. She had been going through such a difficult time, and she came in and she was so happy. We were all happy that she was starting to feel better. The next day she committed suicide. I tell a lot of people that hindsight is horrible, because you go back and you start seeing very clearly all the signs that were going on instead of just being hopeful. And sometimes I guess I have to tell you, do the best you can. Do the best you can. Get involved the way you can. But there's a tremendous amount of guilt that can go into this. And I'm probably on some shaky ground here, but when you do the best you can and you care, you can't control everything. It's out of our control what they're going to do. All we can do is reach out, and we can help in the way that I helped with my friend, or in other situations that we've been in. We've been a listening ear, but something's going to happen if they choose. And you need to find somebody to talk to too, because you're gonna beat yourself up with hindsight. Hindsight's brutal. There's a lot of great churches in the area. I could go through them. There's Oakwood Church on Oakwood Boulevard by Baldwin. There's Christ the King Church on Drainer. There's Kensington down in Lake Orion that's huge. There's Woodside down on Walden and Joslin?
Yes. Yep.
Walden and Joslin. And there's St. Joe's Catholic Church. There's St. Mary's of the Hill. These have, and I'm just talking about some of the bigger churches. There's great little churches too. But they probably have more resources. But please, find somebody to talk to. If you are worried about your kid, find somebody to talk to. Don't just suffer through this alone. Don't just think it's a phase. Again, you can contact us at manager@occtv.org, or you can call 248-628-9658. We're going to have resources at the end of the show. I'm Dave Gerber. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Jeff, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
At Oakland County Parks and Recreation, we value what you value: family relationships, community connections, good health, environmental stewardship, and economic stability. Oakland County residents and businesses have invested in preserving nearly 7,000 acres of parkland. Since 1966, 13 parks and golf courses have been acquired, maintained, and improved. Oakland County parks and facilities are made possible by millage funds supported by Oakland County residents. For a home valued at $200,000, the homeowner pays less than $25 per year to support the Oakland County parks. With every generation, families create lifelong memories at Oakland County's award-winning parks. From exciting summer escapades and stories around the campfire to brisk fall walks on wooded trails and snowy winter outings, the outdoors beckons year-round. It's time to get up, get out, and get going at the Oakland County parks. Active recreation options abound. Cross-country ski or mountain bike on tree-lined trails. Scale the rock climbing wall. Get your kicks with soccer at several sports fields. Row or paddle a boat on 4 picturesque inland lakes. It's an easy journey. Most parks are just a short drive away. A quick tip: all our parks and golf courses end in Oaks. To find your favorite, just go to destinationoakland.com. Click to pick Oceans of Motion water parks at Red Oaks and Waterford Oaks, the Wint Nature Center at Independence Oaks, Teen Adventures, and even entertainment to go. When outdoor adventures on your list, there's fishing, beaches, boating, playgrounds, and seasonal hunting. The campgrounds at Addison Oaks and Groveland Oaks feel like being up north with plenty of recreation options. Want to get fit? Hit the trails. Oakland County Parks boasts more than 68 miles for strolling, walking, hiking and running, biking, or horseback riding. If the links are your lure, 5 golf courses, including premier course Lion Oaks, are conveniently located. Make Glen Oaks or White Lake Oaks your home course. Get an up-north feel at Springfield Oaks, or play a quick 9 at Red Oaks. Our recreation lineup rocks. Learn to swim. Experience an outdoor adventures camp. Take the fast track at BMX, or gain new lifelong skills. Everyone's included. Individuals with disabilities participate in dozens of adaptive opportunities, including a new fully accessible playscape, modified golf carts, and annual events. There's always something special going on at Oakland County Parks, whether it's a classic car show, the Oakland County Fair, a senior golf tournament, or the Ellis Barn Festival. Being green is an everyday practice with nature interpretive programs, wildlife habitat protection, reduction of invasive species, and stormwater management. Your responses to surveys indicate that you want more trails. The Oakland Trails Advisory Council was established to coordinate trail systems and seek grant sources for future trail construction. You also said that maintaining and refurbishing existing facilities is a high priority, as well as continuing exceptional quality service standards. Oakland County Parks serves an increasingly diverse population of all abilities, ages, interests, ethnic backgrounds, and cultures. The needs of lifelong residents, as well as newcomers, are carefully considered when planning parks and programs.